Well, Vince, as a side note, the Floridians, the people of Florida now are much more inclined to believe in Florida and in climate change since a hurricane, a hurricane resembling a 20 or 30 mile wide tornado just wiped a bunch of it off the map.
Yeah.
And this is the second time in months, or third time in months they've had big slashes through there. So they're starting to change their attitude about things. Just
Yeah.
for your interest.
Y'all, I have a question. Yeah, hearts go out to the people of Florida. This week I learned a lesson of keeping my mouth shut. I made the mistake of parroting a teacher to my wife, who I consider fairly awake, and I made the mistake of saying that we go along to a spiritual group and we see a Swami. My wife sees the Swami as more of a friend. I have him a bit more elevated. And I went through some health struggles and, he didn't really help me. So I've sort of brought him down to my level, rightly or wrongly. And this week, she wanted to go and see them, and we do a bit of kirtan singing there. And I said, yeah, I'm happy to go along and sing my little heart out. But as far as going up and prostrating to the Swami, I said, I see spiritual groups. This is what I was parroting. I'd read some, it may have been Paul Hederman said something about, which really resonated with me, that spiritual groups are perpetuating separateness. And oh my God, did I open up a can of worms? And she said to me, well, what is awake? Are you awake? And of course I'm not, but I'm awakening. I mean, I work in progress, but yeah, it didn't go well. So I think I learned a lesson to keep my mouth shut about my little parroting teachers. So that's my little lesson.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big one, and you're going to find that particularly people that follow whatever you want to put it, a group or a religion or whatever, they've invested everything into that, and so anything that rocks the boat is threatening to them. So yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the other one that's not quite so big a deal is that when you wake up, and it's really common, most people that wake up want to go out and save the world immediately.
Yes.
It's a big, a huge want. If you see other people suffering and you can see they're suffering because of their attitude, and you go, oh God, I can fix this in an instant, but look what you can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spot on.
So yeah, in the end, you just learn to keep your mouth shut with everybody, particularly unless it's in a group like this, and then the opposite, let it out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more accepting. Yeah. It's awesome.
And so see, this is the trick. So if you confronted me and said, "Are you awake?" my first response is going to be, what are you talking about? What's awake?
Yeah.
Right? Yet I'll say I'm awake.
Right.
Both are true. I mean, and neither are true as well. Yeah, so it's just a matter of communicating. And so when there are some characteristics of being awake
Yeah.
that you can point to, and then they get a bit hard to define sometimes too.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, one of the questions that you might ask is, how often do you get triggered into an emotional state? That's
Yeah.
something that you would expect that will change. Let's not imagine that it gets completely eliminated instantly, but it will change. The frequency, the intensity might get more, but the frequency will generally reduce.
Yeah.
And certainly the longevity of it will reduce because
Yeah.
you'll see it happen a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And so those things.
Sorry. Yeah. My practice has sort of been looking at exactly what you said, what triggers me back into that feeling of separateness, or, I don't want to use the word ego, but just, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but things will bring up in me this feeling of Kevin, the separate being with his stuff and wounding, and and that's a cyclical
Yeah, yeah.
thing, is I think I heard you say.
Yeah, one of the things that comes to mind, Kevin, about when you said that was that um, you're saying if I get triggered into ego and
Yeah.
etc., right?
Yeah.
And they're well, you could say they're fantasies, they're concepts, ego and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
if you were to bring your focus back to what is actually happening
Right.
into you when you get triggered, you'll find is the first thing you can say is, oh, I get triggered into an unpleasant or uncomfortable emotion.
Yes.
And so that's an actuality, although we're not looking at it in any detail there,
Yeah.
because it's a pretty superficial actuality, but nevertheless, you're not, you stop relating to concepts and ideas,
Yeah.
start relating to what is actually happening. That's a big one.
Thank you. Yeah, that sits well with me. Yeah.
And then the next thing, when you get a hold of that one, the next thing to do is to look at how feelings are sensations with stories hanging off them.
Right.
So when you get into an emotion, if you start looking at it closely, you'll realize that there are just sensations that don't have any information, no instructions, and there are stories hanging off it, which is where all the information and instructions are, in the stories that hang off that emotion. But
Yeah.
they're not tied together.
Yeah.
They can be separated, those two things. And then once you see the stories for what they are, that's often all it takes for them to drop off.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of them are so ludicrous. They're pretty stupid
Yeah.
stories, but we've
Yeah.
never examined them, so we never know.
Exactly. Yeah, as an example of how my mind works, I read something, and it triggered about a thorn being used to remove a thorn. And I remember Ramana Maharshi said something about that. So I went looking for his book. I went down that rabbit hole. I found the piece. And it seemed to me that, you know, things that trigger me back into my separateness uh, can be used, is like a thorn to be used to remove this feeling of
Yep,
separation.
absolutely, yeah.
So I was going down this whole rabbit hole of research, and you know, that's
Yep.
that's
Well, that's
that's
a good
how
way
I
to keep away from it. Yeah,
keep away from it.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
any, any, so you can ask yourself a question: are these thoughts about something?
Yeah, me.
Well, if they're about something, they're a story. They're
Yeah,
just thoughts. They're a concept.
yeah,
You know, what they're about may or may not exist in actuality. Right? So the brain doesn't recognize the difference between a fantasy and an actuality as
no,
far as what they're about. But you can be sure that all of your thoughts are going to be about stuff. So your thoughts are never the actual thing. They're always only pointing to something. They're
right.
always only about something. So they're all thoughts. They're all stories. They're all concepts. They're all absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
But how we respond to them, that's where experience kicks in.
right.
Even though you actually experience your thought, you don't experience the content of your thought, but you experience the fact that you've had a thought. But just put that aside for the moment and go,
Yeah,
what am I experiencing? What is the actual experience? And you've got to go to the body for that.
body. Yeah,
So the stuff that comes up in thought, every bit of it is rubbish at this stage, every single bit of it. And that makes it a lot easier to just dismiss it altogether. No matter what it is, don't even examine it to see if it's okay. Just dismiss it.
okay.
It's rubbish.
Yeah.
And then what are you left with? You're left with
Well,
responding. You're left with experience.
yeah,
And that's actual.
gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, I'm almost left in peace, just equanimity. Yeah.
I well, wonder why the thought come back to me about prostrating in front of the guru. And I couldn't imagine, and that, how can that guru tolerate that? How can he encourage it? I don't understand it.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Well, it would make me feel really weird. People bowing in front of me. Good heavens.
Yeah.
I'd almost want to shudder.
Yeah. Creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, it is creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's from a lineage that, I don't know, just
Yeah,
perpetuates.
they did that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, ask him how many people have woken up with him.
Well, that's what I wondered after meeting your good self and reading a few books. I thought, yeah, Jed McKenna says that how many wake up in these gurus' presence, and I can't see any. Even himself, he's often triggered by his, in that lineage, they're allowed to have relationships, and when his ex came to live with him, yeah, it pushed his buttons big time.
Mm.
And felt like saying to him, "Welcome to the common man's world."
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not immune to that either.
We had
So
a
you,
big group of Mahayana order of Buddhists years ago came over to Liberation Unleashed. Long time meditators, long time rituals. I don't think one of them got it. Well, I think one of them kind of had a hint at it and told the rest of them, "Oh, you need to go to Liberation Unleashed." And there was a whole bunch of them came in. I say at least 4 or 5 of them came in and took up the guide's time for quite a while, and they kept coming back with when the guide would ask them to look, and they kept coming back with some saying or teaching they had had or something like that from time. And I don't think any of them got it. I think they eventually all wandered off. So I'm not a big favor of lineages. I think it's time to let all that go.
Exactly. And keep it to myself at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of a trick too. I mean, what it did occur to me to mention it a minute ago, that not putting stuff on other people doesn't mean keeping it a secret.
Mm,
Uh,
okay.
it just means that there's a lot more discretion about what you discuss and how you discuss it, what you
Yeah.
talk about. Yeah. And so the very first thing that you need to understand is that you're going to get a response if you tell somebody what they're doing is wrong,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
It's
not a
interesting.
response that you want.
No, it's interesting. We'd often come back from this particular group, and I think subconsciously there was something I was feeling discordant with. And my wife and I would have some of our biggest blows in the car, biggest arguments in the car coming back from there, you know, which happened so often it became like a curiosity to me. So I think that's what it was. It was my discomfort with what was going down and having to be seen to be playing the game. Yeah,
Yeah.
something.
And so the fight was because you were putting this to your wife in such a way that it made her feel like it was wrong.
Yeah, it could just be innocent, saying something uh, slightly questioning about what went on in the evening. Not outright critical of the place, but because she'll often come away with there in almost like a bhava state, a bliss state, and I'll come away. Uh, she'll play the harmonium, which is more relaxing, and I'm banging away on the guitar like a mad thing, and I'll come away quite depleted. And so I guess there was a bit of envy or jealousy in me about
Mm.
the bliss state they're all experiencing. I'm looking around going, wow, how come I don't feel this? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so
Mm.
you find the need to bring her down out of her bliss state.
I guess that's the bottom line. Yeah. Yeah. Burst the bubble, maybe, which isn't a nice thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So one way to look at it is that obviously they're getting good things out of doing it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they should be allowed that. I mean, there's no harm in it, is there? They're
No,
not burning babies or anything like that. So
no, they're not.
everything, yeah. So that's to be encouraged. See, as much as I think a lot of Christians, and I don't mean all of them because you can't generalize like that, but
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of Christians have totally stupid ideas about the way the world works, but their
Mm.
religion
Mm.
leaves them as good people.
Yes, exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more within me. I need to look. Yeah.
Mm. Well, it's always about us.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for listening.
I'll send you an invoice.
I'll pay it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And if you're going to quote anybody, don't quote Paul Hederman.
Oh, really? I thought you loved him. Oh,
I do love him, but I certainly wouldn't quote him to somebody about the anti-spiritual
yeah.
stuff because
Yeah. Get it.
he's
Yeah.
a he'll he's exactly what you said, which is
Yeah.
not what the more religious types want to hear.
Yeah. oh my goodness, I purchased this movie, his documentary, Traveling Lighter, and it's just amazing. He is so clear. Yeah.
I didn't know he had a documentary. It's over
Yeah.
on his website.
I've got the link here. If you hang
I'll
on.
find it. That's okay. I'll find it. I didn't know he had a
Yes.
documentary. I just watch his videos from time to time. I just always
Yeah.
thought he was incredibly helpful.
No, I think it's a chap who's one of his, I won't say devotees, but it cost me $19. And
Mm.
it's awesome. They send you the link, and I've watched it now probably 5 times. I'm just enamored with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be something I'll be interested in. I really
Okay.
like him.
Well, if you can't find it, I've got it here. I resent it to myself because I was fed up looking through my emails for it.
Okay, I'll find it.
Cool.
I might jump in, Vince, and talk for a bit.
Thank you. Well, that was about 3 minutes it took you to get there. And it
3
looked like
minutes
you were,
since.
it looked like you were scared. Were you?
No, I unmuted, and then I was just waiting till my heart started to pump really hard. That's a sign to speak.
Right.
So once it started to really get going, I said, okay, now it's time to talk.
Okay, good.
Um, I suppose the biggest thing I'm having at the minute is a kind of fears around work. Today, the thought came like I'm not doing anything. And it's like life is just happening, but there was a fear that I'm not doing anything. And the whole energy behind work that I might have had years ago just doesn't feel like it's there now. So each day I do what I do, but the thought comes I'm not doing anything, and it's worrying. There's a whole series of thoughts that build on that, then that I'll ultimately lose the job, which is the fear. So that's one piece that's there for now. And then Friday, I was down in my parents have a place down the country, and I was down there, and I was looking for a laptop, an old laptop I'd left there, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I was so annoyed and upset and angry that my laptop has gone missing, and where is it and who took it, and texting 2 different people asking where it might be, and just so crazy. I was looking at it going, what was going on with me then? And I was kind of feeling into it today, and it was a sense of, I'm not respected, I'm not seen. And then out of nowhere, Byron Katie came into my head, and I started turning it around. And I was kind of realizing in those moments I wasn't respecting other people in how I was kind of, looking for it. And The whole, I just saw it as this sort of, it wasn't the people I was annoyed with, it was just anger, lots of anger. And it was like I was angry at something, but it wasn't the people. And it was like I just kind of made it into this demonic, mystical being that I was angry at, that if I could get hold of it, I'd slit its neck and kill it once and for all. And that it's not the people I'm angry with, but it's using the people to kind of draw out the anger. So they're kind of two sort of mundane life events that I'm kind of thinking into and trying to figure out what's going on with me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, good ones. Both of them good ones. Yeah. But I forgot what the first one was again. Now tell me what that was again.
Work and the fact that I'm not doing anything and
Ah,
eventually
okay.
lose the
Yes.
job.
Yeah, got it. Yeah. Yeah. So so my question came up straight away. When you say you're not doing anything, stuff is still happening.
Stuff is happening, but when I look at it, the pace and the energy behind and the drive isn't what it used to be, and that's well, that's what's creating the fear around it. That maybe for such a big part of my life, you have to work really hard and do a lot and prove yourself and people please and really go at life hard.
Yeah, gotcha.
Like
Yeah.
like you're stuck in that fight flight feel all the time with work.
Yep. And so if in the imaginary scenario that work was not about the effort you put in, but rather the results you can get, and if you got those results with no effort, that still would be not good. Is that a way to say it?
Mm, no, now that you've said results, I mean, I don't see results yet. I suppose it's only 2 months in this job, but if results don't come, then that'll be an issue, and there's a fear there won't be results. It's like I've seen other people do things and I've seen their results, but I can't see my own. And I'm kind of futuring and thinking about how I'm going to make things happen and plan projects and get results. And I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't even know if I can do it. So that's bringing up, or those thoughts are bringing up the fear then.
Mm. And somewhere in that is the thought that you have about yourself that you should be working a lot harder, should be pushing.
Yeah. Plus, it's the flip side is I'm no good. I can't do it. If I could quit tomorrow, I would. It's a necessity now. I don't want to work. I'm just questioning that. Actually, maybe I do, but it's back to being not good enough.
Dennis, can I just say I've got the same thing. My work used to be based on lack of self-worth, and I needed to please people, to achieve things, to be seen as the nice guy. And then something happened and that just dropped, and my work ethic went out the window. And I'm lucky I work for the government, so you can get away with that sort of thing. And
I've
yeah.
just taken a government job.
Oh, really? So you're in the right place. I mean, as bad as it sounds, I'm waiting for the big hammer to come down, and I've been waiting for 3 years now.
Mm.
And my boss says, you're doing a great job. People love you. And I'm going, really? I think the universe just puts you in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe that'll happen. And if it does, it does. It's really, it isn't about the job really, or it isn't about thoughts. It's about the underlying fears, emotions that I'm touching into a little bit with it as to I think it's back to being a young person and not feeling seen or feeling
Yeah.
Feeling like a fraud or not good enough, or I don't know. Like, the root of it is,
Well, that's it. You've been given time to look at it.
What if it turns out that you really are not good enough?
that's it. It feels like there's a big anchor in the ground and there's a big rubber band on my back, and I've been stretching away from it for years. But that anchor is, you're not good enough, and I've been just using all my strength to stay away from it as long as I can.
Yep, yep. I love that analogy. It's very close to the one where that anchor is a young Dennis. That anchor is young Dennis with his heels dug in, back in time, holding onto those rubbers, and he's unshiftable. So I put a meditation up on YouTube for you on that particular one. If you get to have a look at that, it's just called sleeping meditation. So I'm recommending that you listen to it as you go off to sleep. But it's
I'll
about
have a look at
how,
it, yeah.
yeah, it's all about how you can go back to that anchor and without any strength involved, but with compassion and love and forgiveness and understanding, etc., you can cause him to take his heels out of the ground and stop leaning away and stop pulling back, and you can actually eventually get him to understand that it's not inherent in him, that not good enough, that is a learned situation as a result of the conditions, the circumstances in which he was existing at the time. And when that message gets through, young you will just simply merge with current you, and you can lift him up and carry him back into the present and integrate him into the present. He doesn't no longer needs to live in the past. And so that's a really relevant
Yeah.
meditation for you. Oh boy, and I'm
No, I'll
finding it
definitely
for
try it in.
so many people. Yeah, it's big time. We all have that
'Cause,
younger us with their heels dug in, holding us back. Yeah.
yeah, it feels really connected to that sort of core. I'm going to call it like your core wound, which is just,
Yep.
I'm
And
just
because it's,
no good.
yeah, and it's I'm no good. You're at stage 3 of the development of this. So in the beginning, it is that that's purely the external circumstances pressing in on young Dennis. Right? And then he starts to think, well, maybe I'm the reason why this is happening. This is what all kids do. I'm the reason why all of this is going on around me. And then the next step, the really important big one, is it's in me. Right? It's an integral part of me that is the problem. It's no longer the circumstances outside. It's no longer the fact that those circumstances affect you. It becomes you. And at that point, heels are dug in and there's no moving, because you can't do anything. The only way you can cope with that, being in you, is to disassociate from it. And that's why becomes a cellular memory.
Yeah, and there's even a fear around asking for help, because that's like, I was even thinking about, like, even a rational thought came in, like, well, why don't you just talk to your boss, have a conversation, come up with a plan, and just talk about the projects and stuff, and just get some clarity of the people around you. You don't have to go it alone and try to do it on your own, which is something I've always tried to do. And it's like kind of crazy trying to do it that way. But there's a stubbornness that's afraid, or a sign of failure if I ask.
Yep. So that's another issue, isn't it? And you might find it's actually connected to the first issue.
Yeah, it feels like the same issue, just from two different angles. Yeah.
And of course, you know damn well, you know, your adult intelligence, right? You know damn well that when you talk to your boss about it, it'll be absolutely fine, and you'll go, what the hell was I worried about?
Hopefully, yeah. There's bursts of that, but I find with my memory lately in my mind, I forget everything really quickly. Everything just gets forgotten really quickly, and I'm like, God, this could expose me in work. Like,
Yeah. No,
it's so obvious.
it's not that you're forgetting, Dennis. Let me say this is the way I see it, and it's my experience. It's not that you're forgetting stuff. It's in that it's not that you can't um, you can't pull that memory to the front. It's that there was never a memory put in there in the first place.
Yeah, that feels true. It's just going through me,
Yeah.
instead of being parked and lodged. It's just
Yeah. And so one
makes
of the
work
things,
difficult.
yep, one of the things you'll start to appreciate is that for a memory to be formed, there has to be thoughts associated with the sensations. Right? So you only form a memory about a feeling, which is sensation plus stories. Remember that one. So
Mm-hmm.
so in order for you to put a memory away, right? One of the things that I just read recently, quite yesterday in fact, was if you want to remember something, do a gesture with your hand. As you say the word, do a gesture, and then you'll remember it because of that association with the physical. And even if you just diddle in your pocket, put your finger and your thumb together tightly, or the second finger for the next thing, and the third finger for the next thing, or scratch your face, whatever. You know, that any gesture associated with a thought will make it easier to remember, because then you have put something away.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a big part of me though that just wants to be, whether I'm sitting there or whatever. There's just a beingness that just wants to be more so than do. And I'm kind of tired of that old way of, I'm going to say working hard to put a label on it, but um,
And it is a bit scary when you think about it, that things can happen without that push or that effort or that working hard bit kind of thing. You know, it feels like you feel even more like a fraud. That, you know, there it is, the work's happening and I'm not doing it. It's just happening. That's that can be pretty freaky, I imagine, for some people.
yeah, it's like it happens in bursts and starts, and then you're back. It's something coming and going that's like, and it's like I'm picking and choosing that I trust, and then I don't trust. And how can you trust and then not trust when when it suits you? Because even if you have the belief or knowing that everything is happening as it should, there's no mistake, everything always works out. But yet, then you can worry about something, and another part of you knows it's all fine. Like, I mean, if you don't have a job in 6 months, you don't have a job. The next thing will happen, but it's just, it's the need to worry, and the need to worry feels like it's built on a foundation of emotion and getting
Yeah,
to that core wound, that root of I'm no good again, or that's all I've been able to find. And there's always been a sadness and grief behind that. And I have been, because I said at the last meeting I was at, I've been noticing, I've been listening to John Bradshaw a bit, and he does all that kind of going back for your child, your inner child, and your family, and all that kind of stuff. So So I'm in the process of doing that, and but I'm not doing any practices like the book Paul mentioned. I started and I've stopped. I haven't read it in weeks, and I think Graham has given me a link to one meditation I've done, but other than that, I've done very little. I'm just getting on with life, and luckily enough, noticing when I get annoyed or angry, and then working it back into the body.
Sounds great to me. Well, I love that. Yeah. I mean, when you are reading stuff, then you're looking to the future. You know, at least right now you're in the present, and that's a huge thing. Yeah.
Dennis, have you ever heard of imposter syndrome?
Yes, Paul, I have. Yeah, I would have. Yeah, I would have.
Feeling of constantly feeling like a fraud.
Yeah, I have
It's a
that.
feeling you, and common in people starting new jobs, can cause anxiety and depression, can cause
Oh,
burnout even.
yeah, I've always had it on and off, and it would have caused me to burn out in about 2 years ago. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying what you're talking about is very common, and especially Western societies where competitiveness is valued above everything else. So don't feel like the lone stranger.
No, and when you say it, like I noticed, you start a new job and you're putting your best foot forward, and in a sense, you're performing and you're giving a, a certain ego out to the world. And we went on a kind of a trip, just an evening where we were kind of team building. We went to one of those escape rooms where you have to solve all these puzzles and spend an hour trying to get out of a room. And it was really obvious that when I was in that environment and I wasn't in my work environment, I'm going to call it a more real me came out in how I operate and how I, try to lead and how I try to resolve problems and how I take charge and how I do things. And I could notice myself watching myself going, oh my God, they're going to see who I am now because I can't help myself in this environment, but just do my thing. And that was really uncomfortable that I would be seen as who I am, but I just couldn't help myself. We had to get out of this room and solve 10 puzzles, do loads of stuff, and I was doing it. But yet I was thinking, oh God, they're going to know who I am now. They're going to see me. Oh, he's not all nice and, he'll shove you out of the way to get a job done. And, just things like that. I was like, oh God, it was interesting.
Not as long as you're aware of it.
It's a huge thing to be aware of it. That's excellent. And then when you see almost this schizophrenic split between the way you are at work and the way you were there, that's a great insight, isn't it? Didn't you get excited about that? I did.
Yeah, I think when you're more natural, there's more energy moving through you. And if you have suppressed emotions or suppressed feelings, they're fueling that sense of self or that personality where you might say things and do things in a much more animated and alive way versus sort of putting a lid on that in the work environment. But it's still like, okay, so there's that work environment, there's who you notice yourself to be in a different scenario, there's who's noticing that, there's a reaction to it and a fear or a worry that it's beyond schizophrenic. You're like, well, who the fuck else is in here? No, it's just
Well, that's the thing. We all have multiple people in there.
and I always go back to the one thought. It's always I don't even know, I wouldn't say it's comforting, but it's always like, God, who would you be? I can imagine now you won the lotto and you had 10 million in the bank, and then how then you could be yourself in the world, because who gives a shit? You don't need the money. You don't need to please people. You have the security you need. And it's like, then I do be thinking, well, let's try and operate in the world as if you were that person, as if you had that money. How would you then operate? But I don't tend to pull it off. But it's the one thing, well, if you had that, you could be yourself. And there's no other thought like that. And I think that might be connected to growing up with my dad and his work ethic and desire to make money, to be secure, because he came from a very poor family. And so that drive to work and earn is so important. Like, it's core to life in a way. Maybe other people don't have that. There's more of a relaxed approach, and life looks after them. But I need to earn money, so there's always that sort of fear around not being able to earn.
So how much of your dad is in you?
I'd say a fair bit. Yeah.
And it's probably fair to say that he's never going to not be in you, but that the relationship can change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in earlier years you would have resisted the idea of becoming your parents. And you would have even gone as far as to say, I'd never become like, I'm different. As you get
Yeah,
older,
yeah,
you kind of start to see them, even genetically and ancestrally, just stuff coming through, and you're like, oh my God, I'm my dad, I'm my mom. But not in the bad. You're more than them. You're them and more. So it's about what you
yeah,
you
absolutely.
do with it.
And there's epigenetics as well, which means that somehow genes got activated that are associated with his genes. I think there's still a fair bit of mystery around that one, but what we know is that a lot of women who got put in a German concentration camp at the end of the war and were in there for as little as 2 weeks had granddaughters with eating disorders just because of a couple of weeks of starvation. That's really weird. How do their daughters not get it, and how did their granddaughters get it? But it was really well documented that an incredible number of those women had granddaughters with eating, and it turns out to be epigenetics, that somehow or other that gene got turned on as a result of something that we don't quite know about. Or maybe we do, but I don't know about it. Yeah, anyway. So yeah, I mean, it's
But
quite reasonable that our fathers can turn on genes for us as well.
yeah, it kind of goes back to a desire to feel, and I use the lotto and the money thing, but really what that's pointing to is security. If I was secure, if I
Yep.
felt secure, um,
So
I don't know,
imagine
that's
how
where this
your
all.
young father felt. Your young father when he was young, before you were born. He didn't have half the security that you've got, did he?
No, well, as a young man, no. Maybe by this age, yeah. But I suppose if you're not good enough, you can try to be good enough by earning money or working hard. and that's what he did, and that's what we saw, and I suppose that's what I did. But it's not. It's just. It's not right now. It's not in me.
Mm. No, you're much closer to earning the money and feeling like you're not putting enough work in for it than the other way around. Because you've had glimpses of and have seen how things just happen. That's really going to highlight the fact that you're not working hard enough to achieve those things.
Yeah, which was my original statement, that it feels like I'm not doing anything.
Mm.
Anyway, that's me. I'll sit with it.
Yeah, I get a certain feeling from you. Like, yeah. Anyway, that's me. I'm just here doing my thing.
I don't want to waste any more time.
That is it. No, none of it. We can't waste time. You can't spend it. You can't waste it. You can't earn it. You just, yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
Well, on a brighter note, though, with family and life, everything's going really well. Things are going great outwardly for people around me, and I have a job, and it's just the internal world.
yeah. Well, it's not just the
So
internal world. That's a big one. Yeah. And so there's a couple of discoveries in front of you, things that you will discover about how things work. Maybe not even about you, but about how things work. Anyway, yeah. So I like the space you're in, but as I was starting to say, there's that. Oh well, that's just me. I don't want to. I'm. I don't want to spend more. I don't want to waste your time. Um,
and I don't even want to waste my time either. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
I'm trying not to get into the whole, this is all a waste of time. It's just
Well, it's not.
nothing's happening.
It's absolutely not a waste of time, and things are happening. They're just not happening at a pace that you recognise that they're happening.
Well, I was going to say they're just not happening to me.
But they are happening to you. I mean, you're different to what you were a week ago. But okay, all right. Let's say if you have to believe me when I say things are happening because you can't see that they're happening. It's interesting that things have to happen at a certain pace in order to be noticed. If they happen slower than that, then they're often not noticed. And attributing things is a bit like the simplistic notion of cause and effect as well. That makes it a bit trickier. But that life is happening for you in a generally okay way, but there's just this internal quandary rushing
Yeah,
around.
it feels like I have to wait for things to go shit again externally for me to get serious again about this and make time and spend time. But there really hasn't been a lot of time lately.
Okay, well, that's good. That's really good because spending time and making time and putting effort into it is not the way to do it. That's not going to get
Yeah,
you
you
anywhere.
told me to stop doing that. I remember you saying stop doing that.
Yeah, and you've succeeded to a fair degree. but you've still got this idea that you've got to put effort into fixing something.
Yeah, it was interesting what you said, Vincent, about genetics, and I did family constellations, which I would recommend. But my mother passed away. I had a lot of anger come up, and I fell out with my father for 2 years. And I got a letter from my mother saying she used to love me unconditionally, and we had a laugh about that because the term unconditional has, you know, a certain meaning. So I didn't speak to my father for 2 years, and then through circumstance, I started speaking to him again. My mother passed away, and ironically, he's the type of guy that has no friends in the world, and it's just me. So I've been visiting him now for 2 years, and he's palliative now. And I did family constellations, and the lady who ran it went back 15 generations back to Scotland. And there was one person there she said I resonated with, and it was to do with father-son stuff. And the work I've done on myself, I've realized that I had no compassion for my father. And his mother died when he was 3. His father went off to the war, got wounded in Italy, came back to Liverpool, recuperated, came back to Scotland. And my father had no real father figure. He was brought up by his grandmother. So all this compassion has come up. And you think, well, what's that got to do with me? But it kind of softened me towards my father. And this anger just dissipated. So I think looking within myself really had a lot of value. And it's repaired our relationship. I'm getting a bit emotional here because, you know, don't get me wrong, he's a complete piece of work, but I can see I can have compassion for him. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that.
No, yeah, I resonate with that. I mean, I think as an adult now, where I'm at now, I have compassion, and I see them as, you know, children with their own lives, and they did their best. And at the same time, there's probably a younger Dennis who's angry.
Yeah.
And, you know, even when you said you have a better relationship now, like, how hard is it for someone to say to somebody else, you know, I love you and I'm proud of you? Like, how hard is it to say those
Yeah.
things? It's
Yeah,
not hard,
exactly.
but obviously it's fucking impossible for some people. And you want to
Exactly.
strangle them.
Yeah,
Um,
that's it.
But particularly that generation, for them to, yeah, well, I remember, I don't know how old I was in my early 20s, and I was sitting in the car beside my father driving somewhere, and I started to talk to him about feelings, I think. And I don't remember what I was trying to talk to him about, but I remember his response was, we don't talk about that stuff. Just cut me off. Oh boy, didn't I feel something pretty heavy then. But nevertheless, yeah, it was that generation, and it would be absolutely impossible for them to say, I love you. Now, they would feel like they're going to choke before they could get that out.
yeah, and that's where you develop the compassion. So it's kind of like a double bind. That's it. You just have to feel what you feel and feel it fully and move on and try to enjoy the relationship as much as possible while there is a relationship.
Hmm. Yeah. I have a better relationship with my father now that he's dead than I did when he was alive.
Yeah. I think circumstance puts, like, my sister is adopted, but she's the golden child, and my father knows that pushes my buttons. And I've actually never said anything, and we've now started talking about it, and it's really helped that, you know, we have this moment in time to clarify things. Because the worst would be he would pass away and I'd be left holding this baby, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it's been really beneficial.
Yeah, but that's not the end though, you know. I mean, yeah, I was left holding the baby when he died, but
Mm.
you know, that relationship continues.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be changed, and it did. I've had many conversations with him when he's not answering back. He's not telling me to shut up or telling me I'm stupid anymore. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Have you been, Ray?
Um, Hello. I've been okay. I it's funny. I can relate to a lot of what Dennis was talking about, except it's almost like the tune is very familiar. Like the overall tone is very familiar, but like it's almost inverse where I'm not really concerned about my work at all. And it's not because I feel like I'm doing great at work. I just don't feel that it's super important, I guess, at the moment. But my family sort of personal life is kind of where the turmoil is. Um, and that's been pretty tricky. I think I was in the group with you not that long ago, just like a day or two ago, and you had said, "Hey, look, just like go through the day, don't plan things, try to stay away from thoughts, and just kind of like live life in a way that's unguarded." And it's been about a day and a half or 2 days of trying to do that, and it's very challenging. In a way, it's also, in a way, it's um, I do at times feel like I'm expending effort to relax. You know, I'm really trying to like be in the mode where I'm not trying, and yeah, it's a bit of a trip. Probably the biggest challenge for me has been, I'm trying to stay in direct experience as much as possible, focusing sort of on the sense fields and allowing that to sort of absorb my attention. But then I'll get caught in loops of thought um, that feel important and that feel like, oh, this is something you should do something about, and when they come up, they're really hard to get out of because they're about things like, my family, my marriage, my children, and those are right now like things that are super important to me. And yeah, I mean, there's something about it where it feels under threat or in a situation that isn't ideal. And the thoughts are the things, basically the thoughts are that are coming up and that I get stuck in are like, how can I improve this situation? Um, and so of course it's like very compelling, like that whole realm of thought is
Mm,
extremely
mm,
compelling to me, where it's like, oh, if this is the perfect way to express what I'm feeling, or what have you, like I need to remember this and I need to find like the perfect time to express this. uh, but on the other hand, I also recognize, I'm because I'm paying more attention, like this is like thought stuff that I'm trying not to get caught up in. Um, yeah, I don't know. So it's really challenging. And then, last night I was in a bit of a pickle because then my wife was like, "All right, so if you've expressed to me in the past that you're like concerned about our family, like what are your concerns?" and I felt like kind of cornered. I was like, oh no, but this is all the thought stuff. Like, I don't want to get into like the thought stuff, but at the same time, I'm being like directly confronted. It's probably weirder if I don't answer. Um, and so I did my best to sort of to speak what I could without going too deep into thought, like trying to figure out the perfect way to say these things. And I'm just sort of speaking in an unplanned way. And then she was just like, "You're being really vague." And I find it frustrating. And it was an interesting experience. I don't know. I think it was okay.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah, it's
yeah,
good,
I don't
kind
know.
of good stuff, as much as it's tricky, Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the thing when you talk about what you see going wrong in the family,
Hmm.
it's much more appropriate, and it will lead you to the same thing, perhaps, um, to consider what is the effect on you, right? And talk about that. What is it that you feel? What are you feeling in yourself about the situation? So it's not about the situation in the family. It's about how you are responding to that you can deal with. And so
Mhm.
the situation in the family is a result of a huge complexity of situation or circumstances. Right? So you in fact only influence a few of those. So the point is that they will change simply by you focusing on what's going on for you. And it seems like a selfish thing, but it's the opposite.
Mhm.
You'll open up the whole situation out there by getting clear about how it's affecting you. What is it that you are feeling?
Hmm.
Now, the thing with thought, and this is an absolutely huge one. The thing with thought is, I don't, yeah, okay. So what I want to say is, don't don't try to not get taken away by thoughts, but at the same time, we don't want you to get taken away by thoughts. But the effort to not get taken away is just going to produce more thought. And
Mhm.
you're going to think about thinking then. So the way out of that thought, the quickest way out of that thought is to go into the body. Again, same as a minute ago. Again, what is it you are feeling? Where are you feeling that what that you're feeling? Where in the body is the sensation? How is it shifting? How is it moving? How is it changing? What does it feel like? Give it a color, give it a heat intensity, give it a contraction intensity, all of that stuff. Just look as closely as you can at what the sensations are in the body, and that will take you out of the thought stuff almost immediately. Right? But here's a big thing. Getting lost in thought is great because eventually you will realize that you were lost in thought. Sooner or later, the realization that you were lost in thought will happen. And that's the moment to celebrate. That's the moment when you change your whole body chemistry by having a laugh. Fake it, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Fake it, and it will change your body chemistry. You'll have different hormones going through your body as a result of that laugh. Right, but that sudden change interrupts the first thing from finishing, right, which was the rabbit hole scenario that your thoughts wanted to take you down, right? And B, it will drive out any stress hormones that were there because of the worry that was coming up, that because of what you were expressing about the content of your thought, and those negative emotions. So the big thing is that moment of realization, and it will always happen. It'll always happen Sometimes really quickly, sometimes a long time after it's finished. But it will always happen that you realize that you were lost in thought, and celebrate that moment with a laugh. And very, very quickly, you'll change this habit of being lost in thought. Within a couple of weeks, you'll find that you won't be lost in thought like you used to be. So just be really conscientious. The moment you recognize that you were lost in thought, that underline that word recognize, make it capitals, make it bold, underline it. And so when that word pops up, yes, I was lost in thought. I recognized that I was lost in thought. Ha 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 ha. Right? And things will change for you really quickly. So you're at an early stage, but this is great because that's where things seem to move a lot faster as well.
Mm.
So two things there. Always come back to the feelings in yourself and realize with thoughts, whatever comes up, it's never about what comes up. It's always about what triggered it to come up. And so that's the same thing. That's where you go to look at when you're feeling uncomfortable about something that's happening in the family, some dynamic, then it's how you feel about that that's the issue, not about the thing itself. The thing itself will change when you recognize what's going on in yourself.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you, yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say, first of all, I appreciate that, it's very actionable, which is nice. Just as far as clarification as figuring out what's going on with myself, I mean that is kind of the approach. I mean, a lot of kind of what's been going on has sort of been what's nudged me down the path of trying to figure out, you know, what's causing this suffering, non-duality, spirituality, all of that. And I do feel like, I guess in terms of when I'm asking for clarification, it's like, do you mean sort of that project of sort of figuring out, seeing through the self, or more, do you mean something more like understand how the situation is affecting, I'm not, just like my emotional responses to the situation, I guess.
Yeah. You can't separate them. That's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Mhm. Hold on 1 second. My son just came up to pay me a visit. This is okay, go potty, bud. Okay, good. Sorry about that.
No worries. Yeah.
I've been found. But yeah. Okay, so you're saying they're both kind of one and the same?
Yep.
Okay.
So
Okay.
recognize the difference between a why question and a what
Mhm.
question. And so you're not interested in the why because that's what's going to take you down thought rabbit holes. Right?
Mhm.
You're interested in the what. And the what will reveal the why when you get closer to it. So, but you don't have to go looking for it. Don't look for the why. Just look for the what. What is going on? What is my experience at the moment?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And interestingly enough, my experience at the moment right now is that I've got to rush to the toilet. So you guys go on without me for a moment.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Ray, I was just thinking about what you were saying, Ray, and initially I thought, oh, if my issue was just kind of family, that'd be even easier than the job thing. And then I thought about it for a second, I realized, God, I can get a new job at some point. I know it won't be straightforward, but I can do it. You can't just get a new family with what you're dealing with. Like it's a way more, it's a heavier set of thoughts to kind of have to deal with. But just to ask, because you were kind of, I felt you were being general in what you were saying. Are you able to give a specific example? Is it like, I think the kids should be going to bed earlier? Like, is there specific things coming up?
I think it's pretty generic. It's the wife and I are a bit on the rocks at the moment. And we've got 2 young children, so it's sort of there's other people involved at this point. Um so that's it. I guess without getting too specific, which I'm happy to do as well. But yeah, that's it. I don't know.
You said something interesting, and I'd like to look at it. You said you're recognizing that you can get in these thought loops. You're
Mhm.
recognizing thought loops. First of all, that's a very good first step because most people don't.
Mhm.
They just get stuck in them and go round and round and round and round and round. So that's good. Now, the next thing to look at when the way you kind of break yourself out is you were saying, wait a minute, I don't want to get involved in all that thought stuff.
Mhm.
In other words, you're kind of recognizing the emptiness of those thought loops, okay? You agree with that?
Mhm. Yeah.
But then,
I,
but then
I
you
mhm.
go ahead.
I was going to say I do and I don't because
But you do
I
see their
think
thought loops.
correct. Yes, I do
Okay.
identify
Well,
them as such.
just stay with that right for the moment. Now, the way you kind of break yourself out of that is you come in with this. Now, I don't want to get involved in those thought loops, those thought things right now. Now, do you notice that you're giving more weight to that thought? Wait, I don't want to get involved in those thought loops. Than you're giving to the actual thoughts in the thought loop. In other words, there's that judgment thought. Wait, I don't
Mhm.
want to get involved in all those thought stuff. Like that thought is in a hierarchy above those thoughts that it's judging. Can you see that?
I see. I mean, I think that's true. I
Okay,
guess
now
there you
the
go. Yep.
question is, before you wander off in a thought loop, the question
Mm.
is, why do you give that thought authority to judge? Why have you put that thought up above and saying, no, those thoughts are not where I want to go? Where's the authority for that thought, that judgment thought?
Um, I mean, the most proximate justification that I have is just like advice I've gotten from other people, I guess, that are kind of like guiding me down this path, that are just like, you know,
Well, where do they say that thought has any authority? Because I'm asking you to look in your experience.
mhm.
Has someone
Mm,
else told you that to look at the hierarchy of thoughts?
no, just kind of to avoid it altogether.
Okay, well, that's not
Yeah,
working. All right, so look
yeah.
at it.
Mhm.
That thought that you're using, which is this is a good thing now. I'm not being critical here. Don't misjudge me.
Mm,
But just notice that you're giving weight to one thought over some others. And my question is, why? What makes that thought so special that it has a position of authority to judge these thought loops as not where you want to go?
mm. I would say that it feels truer and that I think that it's a
Okay,
more
stop. You said
mm,
it.
mm,
It feels truer. Now, Vince was telling you about sensations. When you have that thought, I don't want to get into that thought loop. I don't want to get tied up in those thoughts. I want to get away from that thought loop. You look, is that the authority that gives that that gives that thought authority is that feeling that that thought is above the other thoughts because of that good feeling? You said it feels truer.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean that that authority thought has a good feeling to it, and that's what makes it true?
Oh, man, I'm not sure how to answer that. I mean, I think that I don't know that I'm in touch with the feeling of the thought, or if when I say it feels truer, it's just more thought or judgment that I'm giving to it. You know what I mean? I'm not sure that it's feeling versus thought that
But the
ultimately has
first
me
thing you
putting that
said
thought.
was, the first thing that you answered was, it feels true. And
Mm,
truth is usually the first thing. So
hmm.
is there a feeling connected with that thought? Oh, I don't want to get involved in those thoughts. And that feeling is what you're using as the basis of authority. Just take a moment. What is feels true?
Um, hmm. I'm not sure exactly how to answer, but it does. Yeah, I mean, it feels truer in a way that I can't fully explain. I don't, maybe can you ask the question a different way that I don't know. I'm getting
So,
a little tripped up.
I want to jump in here. Yeah, look, it's
Okay.
something you've got to experience. Okay,
Mm,
so what we're talking about is you recognizing that certain feelings feel kind of light and empty and have no significance, and other feelings are really important, like feelings about your family, thoughts about
mhm,
your family, and so on. Right, so when you now, as a result of this conversation, you you've opened yourself up to experiencing the difference between those thoughts. So up until we had this conversation, you know, thoughts are just thoughts. Now all of a sudden you've got a whole lot of thoughts that have a different weight than other thoughts. We're splitting them up into two. Well, there's a lot more categories we could get to as well, but at the moment there's just two. That's important thoughts, or thoughts that we believe to be true, and thoughts that are insignificant. They could be true or not, but they don't mean anything. And so essentially you're now in the situation where when a thought turns up, you'll almost automatically consider which of those categories does it fall into. And when it falls into the important one that says something about being true, then you'll just look at what again, what is going on inside you. So we're not getting an answer today. What we're getting is a question and setting ourselves up for a discovery. So before Paul brought it up, you had no idea about that there's a certain kind of feeling with this one and a different kind of feeling with the other one. Now all of a sudden you're going to be looking for it.
I think the thing that comes up off of Paul's question is I'm not even sure that I realized that was a thought. That when the thought loop comes, for me, I experienced it more so as just like a recognition, you know? I just be like, oh, there are these very uncomfortable thoughts that I'm kind of getting stuck in. And then usually in the past there's been a lot of self-judgments like, oh, I'm thinking again, this is a huge problem. And I would say that I've worked on that to the point where that's not so much happening anymore. So what happens almost immediately is like, I feel like I'm recognizing, okay, I'm caught up in some very uncomfortable thoughts. Like it'll be like a ton of very uncomfortable thoughts, and then there'll almost be a gap in them where I'm just like, oh man, I'm a moment of recognition, kind of what you're saying. This is when I will apply the hearty laugh in the future. But I guess what Paul has brought up for me is it really a recognition that is it really recognition, or is that a thought when I recognize like, oh, I've been caught up in some very uncomfortable thoughts? And I think if anything, that's probably, I don't know if that makes sense, but
Okay, it's pretty simple. A
mhm,
recognition is a
yeah.
discovery, and a
Mm,
discovery is going to leave you with a feeling of something new,
mm,
right?
mm,
If it's a thought, it's just a thought. It's just a thought, right? But a recognition may reveal itself to you as a thought, but there is that feeling component that's different with a recognition.
mhm,
So you'll know you've recognized it because you've discovered something, and that's definitely a feeling component.
mm.
But don't overanalyze it. That's a thing too, you know. It's like because
Yeah.
that just sucks you down thought rabbit holes.
Yeah, so the most concise way I can sort of summarize what's sort of just happened for me, and I'll try to do this quickly, is that, kind of based on what you said, I was almost like, okay, well, then when I have that moment of recognition that I've been lost in thought, I will have a hearty laugh. And that will be, to me, that was very actionable and sort of like, well, I was just like simple, when I have that recognition, I will have a hearty laugh. And then with Paul's question, I guess what that has raised for me is when I have that moment of recognition where I was about to just do a hearty laugh, is that actually just another thought, another layer of thought? Um, and that's kind of the thing that for me right now has me maybe a
Yeah,
little bit destabilized, where it's like, oh well, if that's another thought, then I'm then
don't
I'm
worry about it.
then I'm in a
Yeah.
tricky spot. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
you're just confusing yourself. Don't worry about it. It's irrelevant. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. I'll stick with the hearty laugh for now, but I
Yeah,
will
yeah.
try to.
Yeah, well, the
All
other
right.
stuff will happen as well. It will.
Yeah.
You'll start to see things because it's like things will slow down for you a little bit, and there'll be a bigger space, and you'll see more clearly what's going on. But yeah,
Hmm.
so but again, if so, the idea is it a recognition or is it another thought? Well, that's just a thought story that's designed to distract you.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. All right. That feels true.
Was was that a help, Ray?
Um. Yes. No, I think that I think that I'm probably overthinking it right now. Um, Trying to project in the future what it's going to be like and what it's going to happen the next time I'm lost in thought and I recognize it. Um, and so I think that's what's happening for me right now. I think that so yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that it is, and I feel appreciative. But there is, I guess, kind of what I have right now is a bit of a feeling of surrender that just when I find myself in that moment, I'll have a couple of, it'll be its own experience, you know?
Yeah.
There's a bit
You
of
know,
there's a bit of helplessness and surrender now where I'm just like, I'm not gonna figure this out right now.
You're muted.
Sorry, I saw you gesturing and didn't register. Yeah,
Mm.
that's a huge part of what's going on for you right now, Ray, and that is the recognition that you're not going to figure it out, right? So you're going to end up when you're awake, you're going to be living with the biggest mystery you've ever come across, and you'll realize that, wow, so much of what I thought I could work out, I can't. It's just a mystery. So that helplessness, that surrender, is a brilliant place to examine things from, because in a way, it's kind of what reality is. You know, we are helpless, and we and only the surrender is the only sensible thing to do, because everything else is what it is. You can't change what's happened. It's already done. So as soon as you become aware of what's happened, what can you do but surrender to it?
Yeah.
Wanting it to be different is insanity, because it's finished. Yeah.
Like in my situation, I was finding myself trying to project into the future of like, all right, well, the next time this thing happens and I have a gap in with this thought loop, how am I going to apply this piece of information? How am I going to apply this piece of information? And I think you guys probably saw that, you know, I got a little bit tied up in knots where I'm like, oh man. And yeah, I agree that like, you know, at a certain point, it was like the only healthy or sensible thing to do is just to kind of set it down. And then
Absolutely. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then when it's time for it to be of use, it will be of use. But for me
Yeah.
to try and sort it out now is going to be confounding. And so,
Yeah. Absolutely.
um,
Yeah. And when it is time for it to be of use, it will be of use without any effort from you.
mm, yeah,
So you've got lots of big discoveries in front of you. That's great.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess I feel hopefully ready for them, but um, again, I don't want to be projecting too much in the future if I can help it.
Well, the attitude that you can bring to that stuff is pretty important and pretty valuable, and that is that you can see what happens, what's already happened. Right? So if you find that you have projected into the future, you don't judge that as wrong. You just go, oh, okay, I did that. And then you get on to the next thing, whatever the next thing is. And so not fighting what's already turned up is a huge, absolutely huge release from pressure to be a certain way, to have control, to do all those things that are just illusions anyway. So if you do find that you've projected into the future, and then you find that you've realized that you've projected into the future, and you've come back with another thought that said, oh, I shouldn't have done that, then have a laugh, because you're lost in thought, right? So you may have a laugh when you recognize that you're lost in thought. Right? So this is the story that goes. Something happens, and I immediately go, oh no, that shouldn't happen. I judge that as wrong. Right? Okay, so I got lost in thought. As an example, I got lost in thought. Oh, I shouldn't have got lost in thought. Oh, hang on, I saw that I was lost in thought. Then I judged the fact that I was lost in thought as bad. Oh, hang on, I judged the fact that I was lost in thought as bad. Hang on, I just did it again. I just judged the fact that I judged the fact that I judged the fact that I was lost in thought. All right, how many more can we add to this before you just crack up laughing? As how ludicrous and how stupid is this one? Right? But the moment you do laugh, you'll realise that you're not in it anymore, and it'll be a spontaneous laughter, not a forced laughter. This one, right? So every time you find yourself having done something wrong, immediately flip into that scenario where you recognise that you've judged that it was wrong, and then you've recognised that you've judged the judgment as wrong, and then you recognise that you've judged the judgment of the judgment of the judgment as wrong, and then just let it go.
The hierarchy of the rabbit hole, the hierarchy of thoughts, which doesn't really exist. Judge that thought, judge that thought, judge that thought, judge that thought.
Yeah. Yep. I've that definitely feels familiar to me. But yeah, I appreciate it.
How have you been, Maya?
Fine, thanks. Well, I, I've been here for 4 days since Wednesday, and it's a wild ride. It has been really a wild day for me. I did the meditation yesterday evening, but I'll talk about it later. What I was able to do today was, well, first of all, when I came the first day, you asked me a question: do you feel that something is impending? And I wasn't quite able to answer the question then, but I had the feeling that I was going to explode, my head was going to explode. But right the next day, I just dropped everything and I said to you, I'm not listening to videos anymore. I just let everything go. It was kind of relief to be here. This is because I have the feeling that I will get the guidance here, so I don't have to make efforts by myself anymore. This helps a lot. So what I did today was that I was able to, from time to time, just to recognize thoughts as thoughts and not do anything about it. Just it's a thought, it's a thought, it's a thought. Just it was very playful, no pressure. A thought, a thought, a thought, and then I forgot, and then I was lost in thoughts again. But never mind. But the most interesting thing for me was that among these thoughts, I had a special fun in recognizing self-in thoughts. So it's a thought, it's a thought, oh, it's self-in thought. Wow. And just go along with it. And so this was the day, and it felt somehow easy. It was easy, it was fun. It's just a fun game, just like, like whack-a-mole.
Mm.
Oh, thought. Okay. And this evening I was late because I have a clash with another group that I'm part of this group for years now. And there was a woman that I helped her do something. So for some reason, she started singing praises for me for 5 minutes straight. And I thought to myself, this is such a wild opportunity to self. Where are my thoughts? How are my thoughts? Where is selfing? It was really wild. And there was nothing. It was first time in my life that I was able to receive praise normally, not to feel ashamed, not to feel like made me bigger or something. It was just normal. I just said thank you. It was fun to do this for you, and no problem.
Brilliant, brilliant.
The
Yeah, yeah.
first time I was able to do this, and in the next week, end of next week, I know I'll have some more opportunities to. And I'm looking forward to it. I'll have some meetings with people where I would expect a lot of selfing from me. Some people I knew in my past, and relationships were tense and so on. And I'm looking forward to sit with them and to talk to them and just to observe
Great.
myself, thought, selfing. So and they called out of nothing. There are people who live in other parts of the world, but they just lined up for the end of next week. And
Yeah.
another opportunity to self is, well, I always was very anxious when I had to teach, and this is my job for 30 years almost. And I thought, okay, I have classes this week. Okay, bring it on. I will just observe me selfing, because standing in front of many people and having to sound very, very smart, it's really a brilliant opportunity to self. So this will be really, really fun. And there was a problem with me because I was selfing a lot. That was the anxiety of teaching for me, I think. I don't expect the things to be completely resolved now. I expect myself to come back in circles, but to do on other parts of it maybe. And so
Yeah.
it was fun.
Yeah, I love
It's
it. I
fun.
love it. Yeah. I
It's
got really
not a pressure.
excited for you. Yeah, it's great. You're in a
Thanks. And
perfect place. Absolutely perfect. I love your attitude. I love everything set up just right. Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. It might be. I understand that it might be that next week I come and say no, nothing worked out, and but
Oh,
who
who
cares?
knows?
At the
That's
moment,
right. Yeah,
who
yeah.
cares? Who cares? And it's a lot for me. A lot of who cares.
Mm.
And with the, well, my anxiety from teaching and doing everything has also to do with what you talked with other people, with Dennis, for example, today. It's not being good enough. Someone mentioned it last time also. So I'm also not good enough. This makes people write PhDs and teach and being in academia. This is really a good incentive to do such things. So I I had to show that I was good enough. So I worked a lot, but I don't care anymore. I don't care. I really don't care. And uh, the relationship to parents, just briefly, I also have a very big issue with my mom who has dementia, and I'm not able to resolve it with her anymore. So she's not there for me anymore. She's not there to talk with me anymore. But I'm completely confident that I will resolve it by myself. And I know it's a trauma because she had a lot of trauma in her childhood. Sometimes I remember moments when I was able to feel compassion, but it wasn't very often. And during the exercise yesterday evening, having compassion with the child, with the me child, was also pretty difficult. It was just a small opening to do that. There was not a lot of it. This is something I will have to work with more sometimes when it comes.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
at the
we can do
moment,
that. Yeah.
this is this fun game now. Thoughts,
Yep.
selfing. Wow, selfing.
Good stuff. Yeah. And
Okay,
and you
thank you.
don't need to be impatient with that other stuff. It'll come when it's ready, you know? Yeah.
This is what I think today. Okay. I say it might be that next week will be something else, but I don't care. This week it's as
Yeah.
it is now.
Great. Yeah.
at this moment.
You couldn't be in a better place, I think. You know, you're in a fantastic place. Yeah.
Hopefully, it's fun. And Dennis also said many things dropped for me, even for a brief moment.
Mm.
As Dennis said, I don't want some ugly things to come into my life to push me to work further on my stuff. And I always also thought this, oh, I already had some really difficult stuff I don't need anymore. And now I think things are rolling by themselves. So I hope nothing bad will come, or I'll be able to deal with it if it comes.
No, yeah, yeah. Well, you've already got that attitude when you're, even though it might seem like a fairly minor thing, it's not. It's actually quite big. You're looking forward to the opportunity to discover more selfing. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So it'll get to the point for you where you'll look forward to any shit that turns up, and it won't matter how big it is. Yeah. Because it's always an opportunity.
Mm.
Yeah, good. How have you been, Louise? Lou?
Oh, is it Lou today?
Oh,
Hi.
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've just found every single conversation, a lot of things dropped here too. A lot of emotions. You said at the beginning, like the emotions might get, or the sensations, the feelings may get more intense. And that's what feels like is happening the last week. Like for me, it's just oh gosh, I don't even feel comfortable speaking about it because it's been such a positive thing, but it's been like I got to the point where I thought I was going crazy. I do think sometimes I'm going crazy, but it doesn't last for very long. Like I can see like most like everyday stuff don't really get caught. I can kind of see that it's it's a game, and I just go along, it's fine. And but there's some I really like what Paul talked about, the hierarchy of thoughts, because that kind of flagged up for me that there's some thoughts that come up that have like a really like deep feeling, and they've been there for a long time. And it's not about gosh, I really don't feel comfortable. It's not like I'm not good enough. It's like I shouldn't be here. Like I shouldn't be here. This is not just shouldn't be here. That's what it says when I go right inside. However, I don't know if I think I heard you say it on another meeting, and you said something about this isn't yours. This is not yours to somebody. And when I looked at it, I did wonder, like, oh, maybe that's just not mine, because I can't. I've done a bit of childhood stuff, and I wasn't unwanted. I was an unplanned baby, not unwanted. I was unplanned. And it's I've also done your meditation a few probably 2 or 3 times. When I did it in the evening, the next morning was particularly intense. Stuff came up. However, one morning something really weird happened. Is I had the moment I woke up, I remembered these thoughts just came from nowhere, but they were really, really like positive. I remembered all the stuff I did with my best friend when I was 14. And I hadn't thought about those for years and years and years. And they just kept flowing. And then we did this, and we did roller skating, we did this, and it was, and I was smiling, and it was such a lovely, it was almost like something was opening, something was freeing, that, you know, the negativity of childhood had been, the lid had come off a little bit, that it wasn't all bad, like it wasn't all negative. You know, the last 3 years of being on a 12-step program, there's a lot of lifting lids on things, and so I suppose it's been a bit of a roller coaster. It's been really like intense, thinking, like literally wondering if I should call somebody and be taken away in a white coat. And then I noticed during the day that that feeling is not there. It's not like that in this moment. Actually, everything is fine. There's been more and more of that. And just like I suppose for a few months now, I've been not pulling more things into my life. Like this life is full enough. And it is literally just getting up and seeing what occurs during the day. And I suppose what I noticed is just less like planning, a lot less planning. And I really, really love that Dennis talked about the memory, because it's another reason I thought I was going crazy, because I just can't, I just forget stuff, and, you know, calendar stuff, or, you know, where stuff is, phones, keys, remembering to call people, just stuff. And I noticed that what's not there is the beating myself up. That's gone. That's really amazing. Like, you know, it was always a thought that somebody's going to think I'm stupid or an idiot, or I'm autistic, or I'm going crazy, or I've got dementia. It's like all of that's just disappeared. And just get on with it. You go and find your phone and get on with your day, rather than all that clinging on. Anyway, I feel like I'm going on a bit. Here we go.
You're doing well, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds a bit contradictory, but it said like you're in a pretty good place too. But at the same
I
time,
am. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And look, you know, if you ever get to the stage where you think you really need to contact somebody in a white coat, well, I haven't got a white coat, but certainly email me or message me or something for sure, if anytime.
I very nearly did. As I was doing that, that was one of the things I thought, right, this is, and then I just sat and looked at it. I just again more and more. The balance, the scales have tipped enough to know that I'm okay. Like, do you know what I mean? That
Yep.
there's, I don't know, a few months ago I would have been quite scared by all of that, but you know.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if you compose an email, always reread the email, and you might decide you don't need to send it, because just the writing out of that email might be enough to change things for you. Just clarify things in a way. But certainly don't hesitate to send it if you feel that there's some value, if you, in feedback. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's just knowing that this is a process, or something's shifting or changing, or
Lots of things are shifting.
Yeah, and just knowing that, and just not expecting or planning, or just seeing.
Perfect.
You
Yes.
know, and just, you know, all the conversations that you know that go on, they come back in as you go about your daily life, and a thought pops in, and you remember. Yeah, thank you.
And things that need working on will always come back until we've resolved them.
Yeah. The one that is popping up at the moment is my autistic son, which I know I've talked about a few times. There has been a real stronger shift towards knowing that this has nothing to do with him. Like, he's just innocently doing what he's doing, but my reactions and my internal gosh, just reactions inside and thoughts, and I'm just watching all of that, and then it's riddled with guilt at the end. You know, you say and feel all those things, and you think all those things, and then you look at him and just think, oh, you know, he's so vulnerable, and he, you know, lost, and his speech has gone back a bit. He's not able to communicate very well, and this is, you know, it sounds awful, but it's like, you know, just get it out, get it out. But I don't. I give him, you know, then I realize it's just really old stuff, and I can just give him a bit of space. In the moment I realize that, just this space appears, and I just look at him, look at his skin and his eyes, and really see his face, and take it away. I don't know, I don't do anything, but something takes it away from that old pattern of, you know, come on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's just changing. But what's still sticky is the guilt of feeling those feelings and thinking those things. But again, that's kind of just changing a little bit, just noticing that.
Yeah. It's kind of pretty simple, but also pretty complex. And that is, it's easy to see where the guilt came from, but it's really hard to let go of it. Well, you didn't invite it, and you don't get rid of it. It'll stop being there when it's no longer relevant. And you can see your innocence in the whole thing. How can you be guilty of anything? Right?
Yeah.
That can take a little while to sink in, and it will. Yeah. You know you're innocent.
Yeah.
You're as innocent as he is, as your son is, and you're both absolute innocents. Both of you are the conditioned reflexes.
Yeah.
And now we're learning to uncondition or decondition, whatever the right word is.
And as you say, you're innocent. So there's a loop that comes up. There's the same thought that comes up is, it's not fair. Why can't I? It's like a little girl struggling to cope and is looking around for anybody to help. And the way that she does that is to blame others, like, you know. That's what it seems. It feels like in the moment. It's like literally there's nowhere I have to put my big girl pants on and deal with this. And that's hard sometimes because the emotions, and then there's like, oh, you shouldn't suppress your emotions. It's like, oh my gosh, I get so confused sometimes. But if I come back to just looking, sometimes I just look at his face, look at his eyes, and just, you know, just look at something on his, and it just brings it back. And all of that is just layers. And again, goes back to what Paul said, that hierarchy of thought. The guilt feels really like sticky. Yeah.
And when you look at his eyes, or when you look at his skin, you're anchoring yourself in what is actual, in reality, if you
Yeah.
like.
Yes.
That
Yes.
and that just dismisses any thoughts as being just thoughts, because you're anchored,
Yeah.
you're really grounded, your feet are on the ground solidly with contact.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a camera just clicking into focus. It's really it's quite amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Mm.
Have you been, Ramesh?
Um, my throat is sore from screaming in the pillow. So there's too much energy in the body, and extreme headaches.
So that energy level is enough to make you feel uncomfortable?
Yeah, it feels like there's more, but it's just I can't handle it. Like my body can't handle it. Like my throat is very sore. So I just want to relax.
So has your body ever not been able to handle it?
Um, I mean, this level of anger, I'm not used to. Like only recently, I began to feel it. So it's,
So is the anger about that level of energy in the body?
I guess it was triggered by something my dad said a few hours ago. And I didn't recognize it at the time. I just recognized it while I've been in the meeting. And I had to just scream my heads off in the pillow.
So that energy is directly related. That's a response to what your dad said.
In essence, yeah.
and the association between that energy and the anger. Is the anger about the energy or about what your dad said? Or something else?
Like there is a lot of identification about their action. Mm. That any attempts from me to question that just makes more anger. Like I noticed like a lot of questions like inquire about trying to put myself in his place or understand his perspective, or like I don't want to give a fuck about his perspective now, or question my anger, like no, shut the fuck up, I don't want to speak about it.
So there's some sense of attraction towards the anger. It feels there's a point where the anger feels good.
No, it felt painful.
But you don't want to let go of it. You want to hang on to it.
I don't want to feel it.
So what if I could wave a magic wand and the anger was suddenly not there? What would be left? What would be there after the anger's gone?
Nothing.
So you only exist as anger?
No.
So what would be left after the anger's gone?
Silence.
I missed that. What did you say?
I said silence.
Silence. Right. What kind of silence? Is it a suppressed silence or a peaceful silence, or what kind of silence would you imagine?
Like relaxation.
Okay. Yeah. So a calmness, a silence of calmness. So if the anger was gone, so also would all of that energy be gone? If you're relaxed, then presumably that energy is not there either.
I suppose to. I suppose so. Like it's the energy.
So what's the energy?
I feel like this energy of anger is just was hiding under a lot of shame, and there was like clash between the two for too long.
So would you say that you've lifted the lid on that shame to expose that anger underneath it?
Yeah, it seems it doesn't have as much weight.
What doesn't have as much weight, the shame or the anger?
The shame, I mean.
Yep. Okay. So if the shame was the lid on the anger, was the anger about being kept under a lid, or was the anger coming from beneath, from below that, somewhere else?
Yeah, it was coming from not being able to speak, not being able to uh, say what I want. With a lot of self-doubt and keeping myself quiet, hide.
Mm. So do you feel like any of that stuff is holding you back?
It feels like something that was dead and is coming uh, alive, or it's like a machine that wasn't working and it's just starting to work, and it's just clunky, and it's
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I get the feeling there was a lot of rust and dirt and mud holding it down, you know, that was caked in disuse all that time. So does it feel like it's looser and able to move now?
No, it's in the process of shaking the dust.
Mm. But it's in the process of what would you say? What's happening? It's a process of some kind.
Getting used to it, I suppose.
Yep.
Like this is like the third time I felt this energy and expressed it and screaming. And it's getting more familiar every time.
Mm. Does it feel like it will have to get to a certain level of familiarity before you say goodbye to it? Do you imagine you'll ever say goodbye to it?
No, I don't want to say goodbye to it.
So what purpose does it serve to keep it?
I don't want to keep it also. Just
Right? Don't tell me you want to keep it just because it's yours.
no.
So I can only imagine that it serves some purpose to keep it because it makes you feel good in some way. It's hard to reconcile that, isn't it? How can a shitty feeling make you feel good? But yeah,
I think having it available when it's needed would be comforting.
okay. And when it's needed is when you feel like you need a push to be able to speak and act, or what? When do you think it's needed?
I don't know. It's more like I'm not having a specific image. It's more like right now I feel hesitant to do stuff, to speak, to and when I have to cause a conflict, the shame was always there to protect me in a sense because the anger wasn't available
Hmm.
to me. It's like I didn't trust myself to protect myself.
Hmm. But this would protect you if needed.
It doesn't feel like it's just sorry, I disconnected.
Do you remember where you were up to? You started to say, I didn't feel like, and then you disappeared.
I think I said I didn't trust myself to protect myself, or
But you could trust your anger to protect you?
it's it's more, it would allow me to express myself, saying no when I need to say no. But like it doesn't have to come out as anger.
But even if it doesn't come out as anger, there's still anger behind it.
If I can express myself, why would I be angry?
Weren't you just saying that if you can't express yourself, that anger can assist in expressing yourself and that it doesn't have to come out as anger? Did I get something wrong there?
I'm not sure. It's maybe the anger is more like an expression of feeling sick of hiding.
That sounds more like frustration than anger. How does that sound to you?
Feels like the same energy.
Mm. Well, it is the same energy, yeah. And frustration often morphs into anger. Unresolved frustration will turn into anger, I guess. That's my experience anyway. Yeah, okay. So why is it difficult for you to say no?
I think it depends on the situation. Person, maybe fear of being judged or pushed away.
Does pushed away feel like rejection?
Yeah.
So you're a yes man to avoid rejection?
I don't respond. I run away.
Yeah. So what your father said to you earlier today, was that rejection?
No, he didn't say it to me. And it wasn't about the trigger wasn't rejection. He expressed something. He was complaining about something, and in my mind, I'm judging him for it, like whose fault it is, like, and the anger was maybe about his lack of recognition of his responsibility.
So do you have a clear picture of how he should be?
I don't know. I feel like whatever answer to this, it would be a lie.
It wasn't a question to get an answer, it was a question to contemplate, that's all. Hmm. So how much of your father is in you?
More than I would like. So are your feelings towards him really your feelings towards the him in you? Yeah, it's clear.
And if you took out all of the him in you, what would be left?
I would contemplate that question.
I noticed that I really wanted you to say silence.
My initial reaction is there isn't just my dad there. There's a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my first answer would be my mother.
Right, yeah.
I want to share something about my mom. She was talking to me about going to some healer or preacher to pray for her, to heal her physically and mentally and whatever. And I was skeptical, like, and I asked her, like, what do you expect when you go to him? And she said, he will pray for me and I will get better. And I told her, and what will you do? Like, and she said, nothing. And it's like, do you actually believe this? And she said, yes. But she also was laughing, and I was laughing. I wasn't taking it seriously. And but also I was like critical or skeptical about the whole thing. Like, it's, I mean the whole, my path in this exploration or whatever is 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 so painful. It has been hell for me, and I I don't want to encourage anyone to have the same path. I can't know anyone's path, but this is my experience. So it's like, how much should I go deep with people, or how much should I just don't involve, or how much should I say or not say?
To other people, you mean? How much should you say and say to other people about what? About your path or about their path?
When they asked my opinion about something, like she's asked me to, if she wanna
Yeah.
go to that healer, or like, should I say that's bullshit, like, or should I say, well, go if that's something you want to do? Like,
Well, okay, here's my opinion about that kind of stuff. Sometimes it works, and it is like magic when it happens. We can track it down to a scientific thing called the placebo effect, or maybe there's something more in it than that we don't know about. We're not really good at finding out about these things on the edge of what we call reality, the science stuff. So I've had experiences in my life of magic happening, healing, the body healing with magic. So I know that it exists. And I know that that path for your mother may well be a path to get something like that. So I would say go for it. If and I wouldn't put the if either. You don't want to discount it for her, because the way it will work is with full belief. And so if she's going to go with full belief. So that means that you will support her in going for that. More often than not, it probably won't work. Is that because somebody doesn't have enough faith? Maybe. I don't know the answer to that. But if your mum feels like it's something that if she feels positive about it, I would say, yeah, go for it, big time. Go for it. I'll come and hold your hand even. So you're having compassion for her in her place. The fact that you think it's all bullshit, it's irrelevant to her. And in fact, you don't want to express that because that will just remove some of her faith about it. And she needs every bit of faith she's got if it's going to work. If it doesn't work, she's going to probably come up with stories about, well, there's something wrong with me. I didn't believe enough, or he was the wrong person to go to, or whatever. She'll come up with excuses why it didn't work. But she's still not likely to be open to go down your path. That takes a special kind of weirdness that only you and I have got. She hasn't. Probably. I don't know. But yeah. But there are little things that you can do, that you will do, that just by nature, by changing your own attitude. And I don't mean by pretending to. I mean by actually changing your attitude. That will affect her because you're in close proximity with her. When you get more relaxed, she'll get more relaxed. When she gets relaxed, there'll be less sickness around. But you've got a lot of stress in your life with your grandmother as well. That's pretty hard to cope with. And so, what do? We just always look to ourselves for what's going on in here. And as that can change, then others will change as well.
Thank you for that perspective.
It's a tricky one, but it gives us an opportunity to look at the strength that we hold on to our own beliefs with. So that's good in that way. You still good, Irene?
Yeah, since the release of It's Not Fair, I had a dream shortly after that. And in this dream, I'm got an aerial view of this path that goes on and on. I can't see an end to the path. It goes off into the horizon. And then the next thing I know, I'm standing on a hill overlooking this path. And it looks like there's going to be a lot of sunshine on that path. And just as this thought is forming in the dream, a thought in the form of a concern that will I have sunscreen or will I have protection from the sun? Just as that thought is starting to form, I feel two hands under my armpits, and those two arms lift me and place me on the path. And as soon as I'm on the path, there's total relief. And since that time, I have not had a single triggering event. It's been a few weeks now. That was a big release. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Oh boy. That was so beautiful, and that dream was so clear, wasn't it? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing to interpret there.
No.
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the space that I had to release that. Sometimes there's one call, I guess on Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm not sure what day it is for you, but it's 1 in the morning for me. And sometimes if I'm awake at 1 in the morning, I'll just put you guys on in the background and fall asleep. And it's kind of like having my family in the other room. It's a very, very, it's just lovely to hear your voices, even though I'm falling asleep and it's just my family in the other room.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like family too. Yeah, it's great. Mm.
My youngest brother came to visit. He was here all last week. Not Steve, who you met, but my youngest brother. And we just had the most delicious sibling time together and yeah, just really lovely.
Mm.
We went the whole week, he was in the flow with me. We just flowed together for a whole week.
Right. Right. Yeah. How about you, Bianca? How have you been? Mm.
Um, well, this fear, the contact with fear came back today, Sunday evening again. And I think it's fear and pain of helplessness. Like pain of being weak, pathetic. And I think all this time I was avoiding this pain the most of all things. And now I just don't want to avoid it anymore. I think I will come back to my therapy in Poland. Mm. Because I think I may need help with this. Like someone that I can call at any time.
Yep. You can certainly call me anytime. Email me. Whatever. Mm.
But maybe someone in the same time zone.
Oh, okay. I would wake up in the middle of the night for you.
Thank you.
The trick is to not see all of that pain and suffering as something to be avoided, but rather as a portal into what's going on underneath. It's that opportunity that I mentioned in the past that's there. As painful as it is, unpleasant as it is, it is always an invitation, even if you like. And so the fact that you're feeling it the way you're feeling it, to me, is a good thing. You know, that is more open than it used to be, and there isn't the immediate distraction or running away from it that used to happen. So you're getting better and better at being with it. And of course, we must be gentle. We have to be gentle with ourselves with this. You know. Yeah.
Yes, I think I am I am careful with it, and like I was saying that it's also I trust my mind defenses that when it's too much, I will get numb to the pain. Or I will go into distraction. It will.
Yeah, and it works for you. Yeah. But it's, you recognise though that that was always a short-term fix. The long-term fix means getting rid of what's underneath there, but only at the
Yes,
pace that your body can cope with. That's the important thing. Yeah.
yes. So it's like I don't want to avoid this pain, but I also don't want to rush it.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
you know, like it's a path to something else, and we have to go through it as fast as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't work. No, it's happening.
Yeah. It certainly it is happening. You know,
On
I
its
see
own.
I see an amazing difference in you over the last, what, say 12 months or something. You know, like longer time. You may not see it at all because you're so close to it, but I recognise that you are quite different in a lot of ways here than you used to be. Same with Rum is a different person sitting here now than they used to be. Yeah. But we get
I
impatient,
still,
don't we?
I'm so often I watch myself even in real time, and I'm so childish. It hurts.
Yeah, yeah. You should be a magistrate or a judge. You're so good at that. Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, you see, when you were saying helpless earlier, and then you said, you know, you're, I forget the words you said, but you're fighting against that helplessness because it's a bad thing. And I'm thinking, no, helplessness is a good thing. You know, helplessness is where we give up and we recognize things the way they are. So for you to still be fighting against helplessness, you know, it's obvious that you've still got this sense of agency. You've still got this sense of I can do something. So you're still fooling yourself about that one. So helplessness
well, it's
is a go on.
it's rather that I it's not that I'm fighting helplessness. I don't want to avoid the feeling of helplessness. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I forget the words you used earlier, but I got the impression that you did not want to feel helplessness. Now I'm confused because you said you don't want to avoid the feeling of helplessness.
I said that I watch myself and I see how childish I am.
Yes, yes, and I said you're judging yourself there.
And it hurts.
Right. So it's the judgment that hurts. You're weak and helpless, and that's, yes, yes. So you should feel pain about that. Yeah.
I don't know if I should, but I do.
You do, yeah, you do. And of course, it also reflects very much on the way you feel about your father. You feel contempt for
And
his weakness. Yeah.
I think I'm childish in this ways when you know, when I talk myself into it doesn't hurt at all. No, it doesn't.
So you lost me then. You're saying that helplessness you don't feel any hurt from that? What
I
doesn't
do.
you do? I don't understand you.
But I also, well, sometimes it does hurt, and sometimes I go into defenses, being numb or distracting
Yes,
myself
yeah,
or
yeah.
making jokes about it. Um,
And
I
they
suppose.
work. So yeah, that's right. They work though, and then it doesn't hurt.
Well, it's still, all of this still happens. It's just, it's sometimes there is some space for feeling the pain.
Mm.
Bianca, did I hear you correctly that when you feel that pain, that then there's some part of you that steps in and says, "Oh no, that's you don't feel pain." Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, it can happen. Sometimes it does.
And that's a way of, again, not feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It can take the form of oh no, you're just blaming yourself. You shouldn't blame yourself. there is nothing to blame. You know, it can be a positive thing, but it can also be a way to avoid feeling what is it's there.
But are you are generally aware of the difference between those two when it happens?
Uh, who can really tell?
Mm.
I know it somehow feels better. Like I feel that this contact with pain and fear is a source of compassion.
Mm. That's an interesting one.
I think like one time Dennis was guiding me through my feelings toward my father, and it ended with this, that it's like I'm feeling his pain and my pain, and there is no, even I can tell the difference which
Mm.
which is which.
So that compassion that is expressed as anger and pain, that is for not just you, but for your father and others as well. Is that for the world, that compassion?
For all us pathetic humans.
Yeah. Yes.
We don't know anything, and we just
Absolutely.
paddle.
Yeah,
Oh,
I get that one.
yeah, it is painful.
Mm. Oh yeah. Okay.
I guess that was the signal to end the meeting.
It's a terrible, terrible load to carry at the end of every meeting to make a decision about when to finish it. Yeah. But we've been over 3 hours, and we could keep going all day, of course. But yeah, let's let's keep the meetings to 3 hours or so, or less. Yeah. So, everybody, thank you. Thank you very much.